Alright, new cards on the table, new troops down. The Seljuks couldn't place in Edessa, so they placed over in Mosul with the hope of getting there and recuperating. But if they don't get the first move, the Muslims actually get the first move and can drive up to Edessa. The Muslims also position themselves in a situation where they can perhaps fight the Crusaders a little better. That Crusader stack keeps growing now. Extra Hospitaller and extra Templar, and there are more defenses as well for Kingdom of Jerusalem. This is the big turning point here. Although an open Edessa is dangerous too, because what we're talking about in that case is actually more points than the Christians have regained. The Christians have only gained 6 points off the Muslims. So if those two swing, if that's 8-point swing before the end of the game, we're talking about 19 for the Muslims, which I think wins it for them, and only 5, no, that can't be right. Yeah, only 5 for the Christians. And the Muslim only needs 17 to win, which is actually what he starts with, and the Christians will not have enough to win with that. So the way things are kind of falling right now, it looks pretty bad for the Christians. Now the Muslims, is that right? 12 or more with Cairo. Yeah, the Muslims don't care about Cairo. They can lose Cairo and still win the game. Okay. Anyway, we'll start this one off. A lot of playing and counterplaying going on here. Using the Muslims started things off with a quick rush towards Edessa, but before that was able to be enacted fully and taking the full force, instead an aggrieved subordinate was put in place, so 3 units had to remain behind in Aleppo. Then after that siege was set, you can see the Muslims won it. A lightning campaign, not just for the 2 points, was used to move the emir down, try to weaken the forces at Edessa enough. But an intrigue against the commander prevented his forces from moving again. 3 units. He doesn't have 3 units. Cancelled there. The Muslims come back with a siege. They open up with this. This is a great card. Crusaders go home. They could get rid of a d6 minus 2 steps. That could be up to 2 full units, but most of the Crusader units are just 1 step at this point, so it would potentially wipe out a bunch, maybe the entire crusading army, at least 1 unit. But they used that for a siege tower, drawing a replacement card, and dropped the resistance factor to 1. 1 looked very good, but the defenders had Greek fire to cancel that out. They got a replacement card. And then another good card. This is another one, removing 3 units from the Christian forces, but instead they played it for rats in the enemy food supply. Again, trying to rush this Edessa event into play and getting another card off of it. So these are good siege cards, but they could have been really good event cards too that maybe would have just stripped the Crusaders from being able to do anything. Although with this slow leader, they've got trouble doing anything anyhow. Anyhow, Edessa fell. It doesn't even get to shoot back. The only effect is, hey, could the Muslims cause a casualty? They could. Only on a 1 would they have failed. So their surrender call has been replaced. The points have been sent back out. They're up to 14 now, and the Crusaders are down to 10. I think that's low enough that the Crusaders can no longer win with what they're holding. They've got to take more now. It's not, I think, enough for the Muslims. The Muslims need some more points. They need to get themselves up to 17 in order to get a victory. So they need to take, it looks like, 1 more city. It could be Damascus, it could be Acre, which they're already under siege, and getting a good, they've got a good foothold in, as it were, already. But they've really got the Christians on the ropes at this point. Alright, a quick sequence of plays. The Christians played the Frisian fleet, trying to move Walter of Breen, who is represented, of course, by Hugh, and the Cypriots down to Damietta. The Muslims cancel that out with a bad weather. Then they play their own 1-point card. Actually, yeah, they had enough cards. They had to play a card to do this. To do a vassal move and shift a force up to Acre, they have a card that requires more manpower, 4 manpower, that would make Acre very easily taken. The Christians respond with a Venetian fleet lends aid. They use that, and that doesn't have a restriction to go to a friendly port, just another port, to land themselves at Damietta, anyhow, set up a siege there. The Christians don't have a lot of defensive siege cards, so they're going to try to open up this Egyptian front that the game's kind of been waiting for, right? And the Crusaders made the Muslims made an attempt to assault Acre. They opened it up with the sappers and miners. This was the card they wanted to play. It dropped resistance down to 3. The Christians responded with a sortie by besieger, raised it up to 2, which is where it's sitting now. But then the Muslims used a blockade, which allowed them to drop it down by 1. They concluded the assault and took 3 step losses themselves to only 1 for the Christians. Not a good trade-off. They were counting on taking this, though, and want to be able to kind of operate with some of their additional cards. That didn't happen. Christians are at 2 cards. I think they have to expend a card. They'll probably be trying to siege Damietta unless they have some defenses for Acre. And this 4th turn is kind of boiling down. Well, it is over. The cards have been played. Damietta, they managed to reduce it by 1. But remember, poor Hugh has to disband. So he can't just leave those Cypriot troops there. They're going home. He failed in his siege of Damietta. He was hoping to get lucky there. There really wasn't much else for the Crusaders to do with low-valued cards. Their main force and their leaders are all too high a value. But on the other side, the Muslims didn't break through at Acre. They did do 1 more assault and caused a couple more casualties and took 3 for themselves. They're down to very little there and may not want to maintain the siege simply because the Crusaders could come out and sortie. I'm not sure if they can do that without a leader, though, with more than 1 unit at a time, because that's not a cav army. So they may be kind of in this state of limbo there where they're trapped in the city, I think. I got to do the demobilization. I don't think that's going to have much effect because the armies are small. Of course, this one is going back. So the only real surprise in the demobilization, we have the Templars and Hospitallers, which I always pull off because they can go back anywhere pretty much, and it's not really a surprise. Edessa was denuded of troops, mainly to put them back in Aleppo, face the Crusaders here, just in case they get off a good shot. We're going into the final turn here, and it looks to me likely that the Muslims are going to win, but it's not a guaranteed fact. Acre, don't know what's going to happen here. And elsewhere, it's possible there could be a capture of Aleppo or whatever, which could kind of neutralize things. No real easy way of seeing what's going to go on. One thing here, though, the King of Jerusalem, and this is kind of disturbing, Acre's under siege. There's no way his little huff of leaving the crusade wouldn't have allowed this. And that's kind of an annoying factor to that card, because he's just out of the battle now. He's just gone off somewhere. And basically he abandoned the Egyptian crusade. He might have abandoned an Aleppo crusade, but he would not abandon the defense of his own city. Of course, you could rule, well, he's not very effective after that huff. He sort of lost some, whatever. It just seems a little odd. Alright, and here we are ready to push into that last turn. We see the Ayyubids positioning themselves to face the Crusaders directly. Now, they do have to worry. The Seljuks are gathered at Mosul. With enough forces, they might be able to take Edessa. But Acre is worth more than Edessa. Taking Acre would make up for that. Whether or not they can, I'm not sure. They're outnumbered, but there's additional troops waiting in Jerusalem to push forward. The Crusaders really don't have a lot. They just have Pelagius and this James dude here to try and do something, unless they have a handful of 3 cards. And let's see if they started out with them. Ooh, it looks like they have at least a couple. Yeah, so we might see the Crusaders doing something. They haven't done anything for the last couple turns because they just haven't had the handful of cards. They might be able to do something somewhat impressive now. We'll see. For the initial cards, the Muslims open up with a coordinated advance, reinforcing their position at Acre. Jerusalem's a castle. It's not that likely to fall easily, and they had the predominance of force. Now, you'll notice there's something there. We'll get to that in a moment. And they also consolidated here under Al-Muazzam. The Crusaders here, though, is a new load of Crusaders coming in. I'm going to make sure I don't have a way to cancel that. And I do not. So that's a pile of new Crusader troops that showed up at the port. Acre better fall, because otherwise they're going to be able to break that siege. Well, it turns out I kind of lied. The siege didn't destroy Acre. It dropped it down to a 0 resistance factor. The assault, the Muslims lost more than the Christians. The Crusader army marched up and was destroyed en masse. The Muslims actually had a slight advantage in the battle, so that's not too shocking. When I counted the strength points, they were on a better chart, and they had a +1 for leadership. But they wiped it out, captured the leader, and now Acre looks like a lost cause. And the Seljuks rode out to siege Edessa, but the Ayyubids moved up and destroyed their army, captured their leader. And they actually tried to withdraw from that battle. It was largely a ruse to try to take Aleppo. They want one of these to try to prevent a victory, but here's the problem. This other, it was a combined attack, so the Muslims were able to move up and siege Damascus too. And that puts the Christians in kind of this troubled area where they want to break this siege, and they just don't have the cards to do everything. They can do one thing. They could siege Aleppo, which they may have the best chance at. They can't make it down to Acre. So I think their best move is probably just continue on to Aleppo, be drawn in, and fight one climactic battle, and maybe they'll win at Aleppo. Overall, maybe they won't lose at Damascus, and that'll at least get them a draw. Now it's played out to kind of this draw. The Crusaders moved up, laid siege to Aleppo. The Muslims played a plague event. No, that's not it. An epidemic. And that didn't affect the Crusaders much, although they did lose their leader. And there may be, I'm not sure if I got 5, 3, 4, 5. It looks like I can command everything. I'm not positive about that. But the Muslims did lose the one step they had in there, which makes this a lot weaker. The Crusaders can now make an attack after having they put a blockade into place if they have enough strength. I don't know if they do. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, but that's 4 steps against. They're not going to get a roll either, so they need to lower it to get a chance. I think the Muslims want to break that siege more than try to play it out. Their cards aren't good enough to play out a defense for Damascus, or the assault on Damascus. Well, the Muslims swept down. They had all the advantages. A column shift, +2 for leadership, +1 for attacking a sieging force. The Crusader army is destroyed. Pelagius is captured. I've still got a Crusader card left. They threw their last one away and have to throw this one away. They just have nothing they can do with them. They're low point cards and not giving siege defenses. The Muslims improved their siege level by 1 at Damascus, but that's not, they don't have enough strength there to make an attack. They didn't have the activities to do anything. So this is our final position. And it's where we sit. The Muslims win with the 19 points, and the Crusaders definitely are not feeling very well about what happened with the loss of Acre. Now, what would happen here? My guess is the final result would be Damascus is going to be cleared. I don't know if these are going to be returned, but for the most part, I think the Muslims just gained Acre off of this, and that is really a bad result given that there was a crusading army in place, etc. Alright, I guess this one goes up. And again, I don't know. I think it's pretty likely I'll move on to the next one. We're going to be skipping the 6th Crusade. It doesn't exist in the game. The 7th will be there, and maybe I can let you know why the 6th isn't in here.